My thought process was just box to, oh, LinkedIn you go to only when you're looking for a job. If you know that somebody is working in the industry and coming and teaching you digital marketing or teaching you performance marketing, who's working with the top brands there and they've gotten things done, you would want to learn from them.
I felt LinkedIn was a platform which was becoming more of a scenario where I used to get overwhelmed looking at things which were not really true and I couldn't see the authentic self.
Try to find opportunities yourself. Go out there, be open to exploration.
Hi guys, I'm Aalekh, co-founder at DigiAxel, and I have a couple of very exciting guests lined up for the discussion today. Dhairya, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much, Aalekh, for having me here at the DigiAxel campus. Lovely place. I'm sure the students are going to enjoy it thoroughly and we're going to have the best marketers come out of the place. Just to introduce the audience to what I do, I'm a full-time career coach and a content creator. Prior to my experience of doing this, I used to work with KPMG as a management consultant. I worked there for about 2.5 years. While I started my journey working there in the corporate world, I realized that I really enjoy mentoring students and working professionals, and I love the process of creating content. So that's how I transitioned to this while doing it as a side hustle for 2.5 years. Yeah.
Got it. Super. Pranay, why don't you go next?
Honestly, like Dhairya mentioned, this is an amazing place and really glad to be here. And thank you so much for having us here. I am Pranay, currently working at Bain & Company. Apart from that, I typically write content on LinkedIn, which is more on the business and finance front. I started writing content because I used to see things and I used to feel that, this is a platform where I could express my thoughts, and I just wanted to be authentic. I just wanted to show my raw side. That's why I started writing on LinkedIn. And I typically use LinkedIn as a platform to express whatever I feel like about the business and finance.
Got it. Super. No, outstanding. I think you guys are doing a lot for the younger generation in terms of imparting your knowledge and your experiences by way of your LinkedIn and social presence in general also. Pranay, why don't we start with you? If you want to just tell about the start of your journey as a content creator. You mentioned your motivation to get started was just to be authentic, but it's a process, right? Like we know,
sure.
As a marketer, I can obviously, I'm not a creator myself, but I can tell the audience that creative is a process also. It's not, something that you just think of one day. It's a process. So how did you go about your process?
For sure. So I belong to Nagpur, and typically in Nagpur, you would see people not really knowing what LinkedIn is all about. They are not even aware about a lot of things because the place where I came from, I never heard of LinkedIn.
No, I think it's outstanding what you guys are doing by way of your content. You're helping the younger generation on a lot of decisions on business, finance, career, in your case there, and I think it's outstanding. So thank you guys for doing that. One of the things that as a marketer, of course, I understand that is very important for everybody who's aspiring to be a marketer or a content creator also to understand is that creative is a process, right? You don't wake up suddenly and you get idea for a post and you just do it. It's a process, which I'm sure you guys have a lot of insights on how you go about it. So Pranay, if we start with you, and if you just tell about how you started and what's your creative process when it comes to content.
So I typically come from a city called Nagpur, and for me, LinkedIn was a platform just to get jobs, and I never thought I would, moving from Nagpur, I went to Bangalore, and it was pretty overwhelming for me when I looked at people. They've achieved so much in their life. Everyone is winning in their life. Everyone is getting the best job. Everyone is happy and doing everything that they wanted. I opened LinkedIn. Everyone is talking about congratulations, I achieved this, I achieved that. And it was pretty overwhelming for me coming from a small town and looking at things and really getting overwhelmed. So that time I was like, okay, is that the reality? And that's when I started talking to people around me, and everyone's they were all similar to me. They were not different, but it was how they portrayed in some terms of people. I felt LinkedIn was a platform which was becoming more of a scenario where I used to get overwhelmed looking at things which were not really true, and I couldn't see the authentic self. So I started writing on LinkedIn to just express whatever is the reality. For example, if I lost money in stock market, I will make sure that that's the truth that is coming out rather than showing that I made $15 million or something like that. So that was the reason, and suddenly when I started talking about the authentic self, and that's when people also started relating to it, and they felt that, okay, this is what we really believe, right? Because for example, people are losing money in crypto. So if you write that I'm losing money in crypto, people will not say that, okay, this guy is losing money, I don't want to follow him. But people started following me because they related more to me. That's when I started writing on LinkedIn, and I wanted to show my authentic self, looking at the background. For example, coming from small town, looking at meeting people in colleges. Like I was in Christ, there are like 15,000 people in the college. So learning from them, then I went, and it was all experiential. It was never like you read books, and ultimately whatever I read in books was one thing, and whatever I experienced was something else. For example, I read about, your product should be targeted to a specific audience. That was what I read in the books. But I read a really interesting insight about Dove, So Dove, it's one of the most expensive soap, and the largest consumer of Dove is Bihar, the state of Bihar. So someone which is the poorest state is buying the most expensive product. That really makes you think that your target market can also widen up, because ultimately people are more aspirational to achieve more things, right? You look at middle class people, they're more aspiring, they're the most, the one who want to buy iPhones, who want to buy a most expensive car, right? So it's all about what you essentially want to do. And for Dove as well, I would have read in the books that, okay, Dove is an expensive soap, it should be targeted to a metropolitan city and only targeted to a set of people. That's what the book would have told me. But when I saw that, okay, the people who are learning on the ground, they know the reality that this is something that has to be marketed to this kind of audience. So I feel that's when the experiential learning comes in.
Oh no, and I think on the Dove example, I can add 2 cents also. One of the things that we learn in marketing theory, and of course, that's something that I have learned, is you first do segmentation, targeting and positioning, STP of marketing as it's written in Kotler, right? Which is, as you said, if you would have done that for Dove, you wouldn't have found this audience. What digital really allows you to do is start broad. Right? You start broad and then you figure out where your audience is resonating, and you a lot of times find audience that you might not have thought will be your audience. But the challenge is that nobody's teaching this part of how marketing is changing, which is why one of the reasons why we've sort of launched the postgraduate program in applied marketing is also to teach exactly that. So Dove obviously is a brand of Hindustan Unilever Limited, which is one of our main partners on both content and hiring into the program. So exactly teaching cases like that, so that the next time the student goes into a brand in a workplace and his or her manager sort of says that, you have to go by the book and follow STP, she has perspective not just on what is written in the book, but how Dove actually did it, because the Dove brand manager will be coming and teaching as a part of this program. So that's super interesting. Daria, what about you? How did you get about content creation after having been an engineer?
No, I think most of the decisions that I have probably made career-wise have always been very, very organic. It's never been thought through with a final objective. So after doing engineering, what I realized was core technical skills is not something that comes to me very naturally. Working on building a product per se, let's say, or building a website or going into core tech was not my expertise. So I realized somewhere where I can have an amalgamation of tech and management is great. So went into tech consulting. While I was doing tech consulting at KPMG, I realized I'm good at this. I'm doing well. I understand the client's problems. I can solve for it, and I can work well in a team. However, at the same time, I realized that I also enjoy talking to students. I related to them a lot because back in September of 2020, it had just been 4 months of me graduating from college. So I could relate a lot to their problems. And I wouldn't say people...
September is when you started.
September is when I started in 2020, right? When I started writing on LinkedIn.
Right.
Almost going to complete 3 years now. So yeah. So I think the process was simple. I just felt that nobody told me I should be on LinkedIn in college. In a top tier 1 private engineering college of India, as it goes on any ranking website or whatever, and you are an alumni from there. So why didn't anybody tell me I should have a LinkedIn profile? I should have been told that. And that made me question that, okay, if nobody told me, it's okay. But why don't I explore what it is? A couple of people told me you should talk about things on LinkedIn, and I questioned them saying, I already have a job, I have an internship, what do I get out of LinkedIn? Because my thought process was just boxed to, oh, LinkedIn you go to only when you're looking for a job. But they said, no, you can build a personal brand, maybe you can network with professionals, etc. That's when very organically I randomly started posting, again with no idea that it would land up to something that could become a potential full-time profession for me. But I think the creative process that you spoke about, I would like to answer it in one, I would say, sentence is, it's something that it's very personal to you. It's something that you learn and you also absorb from a lot of people around you. I've been around networks and people now for a long time who are creators, who work with agencies, who are brands themselves, and an amalgamation of different perspectives helps me get into that creative zone today. Early on, it was forced in a way because it didn't come naturally, like you said. So that's been the journey, and now I think it's just become a part of my day-to-day routine.
Oh no, I think very interesting what you mentioned about you not having gotten the right guidance in the past when it came to content creation, and the fact that you could do this, just the world of possibilities also, right? Which is honestly why one of the key features of DigiAxcel's education is the fact that all of the mentors are industry experts. So it's all people who've been there, done that, and been at the top of their game. The analogy that we always like to think of is, if you had to learn batting, would you want to learn from Harsha Bhogle or Rahul Dravid? So Harsha Bhogle is great. I respect him a lot. I love his commentary, and if I want to learn commentary, I want to learn from Harsha Bhogle. But when it comes to batting, I don't want to learn from Harsha Bhogle. He can know all the theory, he'll know all the stats, but he will not be able to teach me batting as well as Rahul Dravid. Why should business education be any different? Is the core principle on which we've also built. And on that, Pranay, if you've had any mentors on this content creation journey that you want to speak about, somebody that's helped you out, of course, that would be great for our art.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a non-cliche answer. I don't know, like for me, I think it's the experience that I've seen and the people around me that have essentially made me write on LinkedIn. So I just started writing on LinkedIn, and as soon as I got feedback, that was a learning experience for me that, okay, this is something that people want, I learned from it. So I feel for the mentorship bit, the thing is I lacked mentor in that particular front. The only go-to person was my brother, who was there in this particular space and he was doing few things. And probably he was my go-to person for this. And apart from that, it was all self-taught and self-learned depending on how the audience responds.
Yeah, no, and one of the challenges is for these fields that have come up only in the last 5 years, like content creation is maybe at best a 7-year-old phenomenon, right? You don't have experts. Even if you want to reach out to people, you might not be able to, because there are hardly any people who have been there, done that, and are teaching. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who are meant to be imparting this education are not in pace with what's happening, right? Like even the biggest management schools in the country, the marketing professors maybe will not be equipped to teach content creation on YouTube, how to become a YouTuber, right? Nobody can teach that better than Mr. Beast, for example, right? That's where we're coming from, and the core principle on which it's built also. Dhairya, for you, you're obviously a career coach, right? And one of the things that especially people from the older generation always challenge is, look, our students or our children are going to a great college, they have good professors, which they do, people who've done PhDs, maybe PhDs from abroad, they've been teaching for 25 years. What can you as a 20-something young person teach them that they can't learn from their professors?
You know, it's always interesting when somebody asks me something like this, because so I'm 25 currently. When I was 22 and I graduated, again, like I said, within 2 months, I was teaching MBA students where the average class size was between 27 to 29. And that's the most relatable situation that I can use to answer this question. It's obviously intimidating to even think that someone, because think of it from their perspective. She's just graduated. She probably does not know a lot about that industry or doesn't represent a brand per se, let's say. But why is she teaching us? But I think whatever I was teaching, I'd executed. That's why I was teaching. So, and again, obviously I was not confident in the initial years. You also can bet on something when there is consistent results and track record. If I go to Amazon and I see consistent good reviews and everybody talking well about a product, why will I not buy it? Similarly, if you know that somebody is working in the industry and coming and teaching you digital marketing or teaching you performance marketing, who's working with the top brands there and they've gotten things done, you would want to learn from them as opposed to someone who has a degree, who's done a thesis, who's published a research paper, has the theoretical aspects in place but never applied it in real life. So I think what I always believe in is your age, your years of experience, where you come from, all of that is secondary. What matters is whatever it is that you're talking about and delivering. Have you done something in that space? Do you have some testimonials? and can you do the same thing and replicate it for people? If you can do all three, then it's great.
So in this case, you're the Rahul Dravid for
I'd
your
like to
students.
assume, maybe. Yeah.
Pranay, in your case, you obviously talk a lot about business and finance, right? And that's a field wherein you have these bunch of experts. You have finance profs across the country. And if I were to challenge, if I were to play the devil's advocate and ask you, why should any young professional listen to your advice as opposed to his finance professor or her finance professor? What do you have to say to that?
Exactly the reason why I started writing a video. I looked at LinkedIn, I saw finance content creators, everyone is talking about, for example, Nirmala Sitharaman says something, people will start talking about this is the view, this is the view,
Yeah.
this is what I feel,
Yeah.
this is what people should learn.
Yeah.
That's all people will write about it.
Right.
People will try to bring in a lot of jargons which makes them sound fancy.
Yeah.
And ultimately people won't get it. And I always had a contrarian view to things. For example, if people are saying bad things about a certain policy, I'll bring out the right perspective. So I will always take a contrarian view about what people are doing. So I give them the opposite side of it. For example, people started talking about 10-minute delivery. Everyone was talking about how revolutionary this is, how interesting this is. I took the other stance about how the economic feasibility will not make sense to me. It's my personal opinion. Everyone would have a different opinion. Right? So I challenge that perspective, which is the ongoing perspective, and what's the reality, what I feel. So whoever follows me typically gets the other side of things whenever they want to see. So that's what I try to bring on the table, where I usually typically use sarcasm and humor, because people relate to it more, because at the end, the attention span of everyone is like 10 to 15 seconds.
Right.
They don't want to hear the whole story.
Absolutely.
If you're not making it interesting, they won't care about it. And business and finance, the subject is pretty boring if you don't bring the meat to it, or if you don't add flavor to it.
Right.
So I try to add flavor through my humor or sarcasm.
Got it. So I think the common thread between you all and why people should listen to you is practical experience, right? Whether it comes to content creation, whether it comes to even business knowledge or career paths, you've probably helped more students and guided more students than most teachers with decades of experience, right? Because you just obviously have connects around the country, across colleges, etc. One of the key things that we try and do at DigiAxel is get really the best industry mentors. So when you're learning brand management, you're learning it from somebody at Dove. For example, somebody who's managed the brand Dove or brand Surf Excel or billion-dollar brands in the country. And you're learning D2C, you're learning it from the people who've set up Mama Earth, so which is Varun Alagh, right? When you're learning e-commerce, you're learning it from somebody at Amazon, which is literally the mecca or the starting birthplace of e-commerce, right? And so as we close, I have a question for you, which is, if you could have any mentor, if you have a wish list of any mentor to help guide you, who would that be for you? Pranay.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Warren Buffett. Like anyone who is in finance and investing space. I started investing in stock market when I was 14 years old. I used to take my phone to school and trade at the last bench. So from that time, I've been always intrigued by stock market, and no one better than Warren Buffett.
Got it. Super. Loya, what about you?
I think I've always been inspired by Michelle Obama and Indira Nooyi both. But especially with Indira Nooyi, what I really like about her as a leader is there were a lot of times where she unapologetically gave preference to her professional life over her family life while she had kids and a family. Not that I'm advocating for that, but she understood that there'll be times where she'll have to probably give importance to her career as opposed to her family, and then vice versa as well, and still build a legacy for herself. And she is a very, very big inspiration to me, because I think the kind of dent she has made in the entire global landscape with respect to what she did at PepsiCo is just amazing. So she's somebody who I really look up to.
No, so very interesting. Indira Nooyi and Warren Buffett, both people who have been there, done that. You want to learn investing from nobody has done it longer than Warren Buffett has, probably. And Indira Nooyi, of course, as you are setting out for your own career journey, maybe balancing personal and corporate life, you want to learn it from somebody who's done it. I think that's outstanding. As we close, Dhairya, do you have any message for young aspiring marketeers who are just about to get started? Some of them will be joining us in the postgraduate program. Do you have any words of advice for them?
I don't know, I won't call it advice, but I think one thing that I'd like to kind of say is that like the program is obviously set out in a particular way to give you an experiential learning mode, etc. But I think to make the most out of any opportunity, it's very important that they're not just probably looking at what they can get most out of the program and what's already there. Also try to find opportunities yourself. Go out there, be open to exploration. Because obviously you, the team, everybody, the partners are going to help them. You're going to give them everything that you can, and that support will be there. Having said that I'm not saying that you can build that individual drive. It's not about drive. Have that open mindset to actually go around, have those practical experiences, talk to people who are already doing things that you want to do, network really well, because that takes you places. That is something I'd like to advise over and above all the basic things, which is practical learning, etc. Yeah.
Pranay, what about you?
For me, I feel like I said before, common sense is pretty uncommon, and if like in order for you to apply that common sense, you need to have the practical hand in something. You cannot talk about swimming if you don't know how to swim. So at the end of the day, if you don't jump into the water, you will not be able to experience and apply that in real life. So for anyone who is trying to learn, try to learn from the real perspective than the books. Like honestly, I feel whatever I've learned in standard 10th, I have studied the same thing in undergrad. I've studied the same thing in a lot of books. Everything is same. It's just a more detailed version. But at the end of the day, the practical thing is really missing, because I remember my business studies teacher was really great at teaching, but I would have trusted her more if she would have done business herself, right? So similarly, that's something that I would want to say, that try to make the best use of your connect. But at the end, it's all about connects and what you learn.
No, absolutely, and which is why, so our pedagogy is completely learning by doing. So I think we spoke about it, but in each term in the postgraduate program, the students will be working on a real life business problem. So in the first term, they'll be creating their own brand, then they'll be creating their own D2C website, they'll be creating, of course, their own social presence. They'll finally also be creating an app without coding, using no code tools. So they don't have to be an engineer. Today, you don't have to be an engineer to build products, right? But nobody is doing it. Why? Because they're just not either getting started, and B, they don't have the right mentorship. So of course, we want to give them a platform for them to come in with the right drive to do things, give them a platform, give them the mentorship, and by the end of the year, hopefully they'll have a lot to show for it and launch their successful careers. It's been outstanding talking to you. Thank you, Pranay. Thanks, Dhairya, and look forward to a continued association with you guys also.
Likewise.
And for you guys to keep speaking to our students. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having us.